Hi everybody, it's Monday and I just thought I'd start off today by having you take a look at your Chapter 2 learning scales. And you should have gotten a bright pink note packet when you walked in today. And I just wanted to point out that what we're switching to is this whole thing about solving equations. And if you take a look here, what I want you to do is on the front of the packet, what I want you to do is I want you to just take a second and I want you to look at the scales that go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. So for me, I'm assuming that most of you know this step right here. Students will know how to what a one-step equation is, how to solve a one or a two-step, and to see if you can find out if the solution is true or false. So what I want you to do in the next minute or so, I'm going to stop the video, and what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead, and these are the pre-skills for Chapter 2 that I want you to look at. So are you at a 1, 2, 3, 4 on any of these skills? So what we're going to do by the end of the chapter is we're going to talk about multi-step equations. We're going to justify the steps to those equations. We're going to use properties to solve them. We're going to identify when we have this thing called no solutions or identity solutions. And then if you look right here, this is going to be the hardest skill. This is the part that talks about multivariables in an equation and solving for one of those variables. And then of course the part we talk about are solving equations in real life situations, i.e., right, if you say word problems. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a minute and do that, and then I will start the video back up. We're going to start the notes, and what I want you to do is I want you to make sure you put your I can statement on here. So I am going to start writing I can. I think I'm going to. So we're back, and I'm going to start by writing I can. And what I want you to do is I want you to fill in the rest. So I can solve linear equations. I'm not doing very well with my pen today, guys. You got to give me a little bit of a break here because that's the first time I've done this without a pen. So I can solve linear equations. Ooh, wow. And I'm just going to abbreviate that because I'm not doing very well. Now, what I want you to think about, and this is what you guys did so much last year. First things first, please locate the variable. And then determine what operation you're going to do to what we say undo the variable. So that's why we talk about this inverse. What are you going to do to get get that whole balance on both sides? So remember your goal, and that's why what we do is our goal is to get our variables on one side and our numbers on the other side. So one of the things we talk about today is if you had addition, what would be the inverse of addition? All right, subtraction. And then it goes both ways. So if you have subtraction, your inverse operation is addition. If you have multiplication, then your inverse is division. And if you have division, your inverse is, of course, multiplication. So we take a look here, and these are just a couple of really easy ones. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set up this whole balance scale thing. Here's your variable on the left-hand side, and here's the operation next to it. So we're going to undo adding 7 by subtracting 7. Okay, we're going to cancel the 7s because that's what you just got rid of. That's what you undid. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to say -1 plus -7 is -8. And we're done. We're going to move on to the next equation. Same thing. We're going to move the -11 over to the other side. And again, we're solving for m. So we're going to add 11 on this side and likewise on this side. But this time we see a positive 11 but a -9. So maybe I should even put it on top because then you would have seen 11 minus 9. No matter what, here we get 2. So then we'll go to our next one. And this time, look at when we balance it out, here's h on this side, excuse me. And what I see right next to h is 14. So what's the opposite of 14? You're right, -14. So we're subtracting 14 here, canceling it, subtracting 14. Ooh, but it's actually, again, this would be one of those times where you don't want to think about it. Since you have a negative and a positive, -14 and +9, you have to subtract this time, and this time you get negative 5. Now, the variable's on the other side. Does that make any difference, you guys? No, it doesn't matter if you have the variable here or here. You're just undoing what operation you see. So I'm going to start with the fourth example, and here's W. So I'm seeing negative 15. So I'm going to take the opposite of negative 15, and I'm going to add 15. So I add 15 to both sides, and this time it's kind of nice because what's 15 and 14 when we put it together? And so this time I get to add, and I get 29. Next one, we only have a few left, so now I'm going to do the same thing, and I think I'm going to actually start that one over because you couldn't see where I was. Here's K. So I'm on this side, and I'm going to undo minus K. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Go over here, I'm going to add 8, and this is where all those integers come in, you guys. Whoops, that's not very good at 8. Because you have negative 21, you have negative 21, and negative 8. So what's negative 21 and negative 8? We know that we have both negatives, and remember, we're not multiplying, we're adding. So we add them together and get negative 29. Why? Because they both have the same sign. We're going to go over here, and again, I see my V, and I see minus 4. So I'm going to take the opposite of minus 4, and I'm going to add 4. This time it's hard though because I have a positive 4 and a negative 1, so I'm literally going to subtract them this time, and I get 3. Now that's all great because that's adding and subtracting, but what do I do if I have multiplying and dividing? So here what I have is I have a 4 times A, and I have a negative 24. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So here I divided by 4. And I take 24 divided by negative 24 divided by 4, and I get negative 6. Same thing's true here. I see P times negative 7, so I'm going to divide by negative 7. And when I take negative 56 divided by 7, a negative times a negative is a positive, so also a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I get positive 8. I'm going to go to the next page, so go ahead and flip over, and all of a sudden you see some of these weird fraction ones. But you got to remember, this is the same as dividing by 5. So what's the opposite of dividing by 5? It is to multiply by 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on both sides. 9 times 5, my variable ends up being 45. I'm going to go do the same thing here. I find my R, and I see I'm dividing by negative 8, so I'm going to multiply by negative 8. So when I take 2 times negative 8, remember a negative times a positive gives me a negative 16. I go over here. Now this one's kind of weird because what do you see here? You see negative K. Now we've talked about this enough times. You slide the 1 right there. So when you are, then you know you're multiplying, so now you're going to be dividing by negative 1. So what is 7 divided by negative 1? It is negative 7. We go to this side. I see the dividing by negative 6, so I'm going to multiply by negative 6. So when I get done, I get x equals, and I take my negative 12 divided by my negative 6, and I get positive 72. Now what I would like you to do is I would like you to practice on the rest of them, and then when you get done, there's a copy up on my desk that you can go ahead and you can check these out. Or I'm going to pause it. I should say I'm going to pause it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the answers on there, and then you can check. So I'm going to pause right now. It's time to work them out. Hopefully I gave you enough time to do that. Hopefully you actually hit pause. I didn't show my work on these, but what I want you to do is I want you to check and see how did you do. So on this one, what I did is I added 11 and I got 9. Look at this one though. I divided by negative 10 and I should have had a negative 4. Here I subtracted 15, so I get negative 13. Here I added 3, and I have 27. Here I multiplied by negative 3, and I got 12. Here I divided by negative 1, and I got negative 9. Here I added 47, and I got 37. Here I multiplied 9 times negative 9 and got 81. Here I divided by negative 16, and I got 4. Here I added 9 to both sides, and I got 29, negative 29. Here I multiplied by negative 4 and got 80. Here I just divided by 6, and I still have 0. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go to your worksheet, and I want you to complete the side that has the homework 211. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.